Minnesota has a grand theft auto problem, but instead of blaming criminals, it's blaming the cars.
And I just want to let you know that over the course of the last several years, you have seen people's Kias or Hyundai stolen. You know about car crashes, or maybe you know someone who's been in one involving these stolen vehicles. The cost has been borne by municipalities, by people who own Kias and Hyundais that were stolen, and by people who lost their loved ones tragically in high-speed chases that involve these vehicles. And we settle this matter today.
That was the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison, proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He just settled with two major automakers over a surge of car thefts. Help me to understand, because I don't understand if you get to the root of the problem, which is the lawlessness, the car thefts, the carjacking, not prosecuting crimes. We're blaming the car makers for being so easily hackable, let's say. Help me to understand that, Steve.
There's no understanding to it.
Thank you.
It's just Alice in Wonderland on steroids in today's crazy world. And I think it was Dan McLaughlin, somebody at the National Review, said the best fight against auto theft is jail. Yeah. And that's the solution these guys won't do. So girls playing, have boys playing in girls' sports, kind of wackiness. I think people are going to look back and say, what happened to these people?
Yes.
Good question.
And what's interesting, he said the cost has been borne by municipalities. I would say the cost has been borne by municipalities, by taxpayers who have seen all of this theft and rampant lawlessness, but not had someone on the other end of that hold them accountable. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But he seems to think municipalities have paid for it in a whole other way, that it's the automakers' fault, putting all the money on taking away money from the municipalities.
Right. So he's basically saying the cars are too easy to steal, victim shaming people who get their cars stolen. And it's no coincidence, Taylor, that he is from the great state of Minnesota, which is a very deeply blue state embroiled in tremendous scandal right now, if I could just highlight that aspect, but we won't go there. Apparently, there are some red areas in Minnesota, like where Brian comes from, but they are few and far in between. But still, this is what happens not only in Minnesota, but right here in New York City, where criminal justice reform, they talk about it that, this notion that criminal justice reform should put the criminals on a pedestal in some way, and it should exonerate them from their crimes because of the reasons that they need to steal cars, or you victim shame and blame the cars for being too easy to steal, or the person in the store, well, they needed the food, so that's okay. And we find all kinds of ways to kind of put a bow on this and make it okay. There's one aspect of it, which is punish criminals. That's a deterrent. If you punish them, less people will do illegal acts. The aspect of stealing, for example, and it doesn't necessarily apply to cars, but we've all heard cases of people stealing food or supplies because they do need them. Then let's address the need, because we talked yesterday about how much money we have as a nation, how people pay their taxes, and they do so willingly to be able to help people who are in need. But somehow the resources, which are plentiful, do not get to the people who need them. And that is the fraud, the waste, the abuse, the mismanagement, the misallocation of basically the federal government in this country. It's something that President Trump has tried to work on, but we have so much more work that we can do. And until we get on the same page that we should put the criminals in jail and help the people who need it so then they don't have to steal, because that's not the right answer for that equation either.
And just go back to the 1990s in New York when they went after fare jumpers. That did a couple of things. One is to stop the fare jumping avoidance, but also lowered the number of guns in New York, because you knew if you were caught with a gun, you were in big trouble. Yeah. So again, enforcement is the key. Start with the little things. The broken window theory showed it was real.
Stands out to me. These car makers settled. Why would you settle?
Why would you settle?
But you look at it. What was the dollar amount? $9 million. It's easier to pay $9 million to make this problem go away in the headlines, because they knew they would spend more than that in litigation. But let's fast forward 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. Are the carjackings done? The thefts down? Probably not. So this is going to be another failed experiment by the Democratic Socialists saying we're going to.
And that's why some companies in the past, like Merck, if you filed a class action suit, they went to every single case and fought it tooth and nail if they felt they're in the right. Those companies should have done that. May have cost in the short term, but the trial lawyers would know. They know you go against them, you're not going to get an easy settlement, so they go somewhere else, like a bully.
And on that point, the easy settlement aspect, you're also shaking corporations down because you know that they have money and you know that, like you said, it's easier and cheaper to pay out and write the check than to fight it on principle. And so this is what we see in Europe when we talk about all these antitrust cases. They don't innovate or anything. They just go after the tech companies and they want you to give them money.
It's a good political talking point, though, for him now, Lydia, who he can say, ooh, look at all the money I got.
It's so tone deaf. You know, you talked about how it's costing the municipality. He said it's costing municipalities. He is right in some sense. You know, and Jackie hinted at it earlier. You know, the state has been exposed for some of the largest COVID fraud, $9 billion, according to U.S. attorneys, that they've exposed in the state of Minnesota. But just yesterday, roughly 100 mayors in the state wrote a letter to Governor Walz and other state leaders saying, basically, please manage this better. You are costing us money. We cannot plan for our own municipal activities because the fraud and the mismanagement at our state government is so horrible. So he is right about that, but I think he should ask himself what type of accountability he holds in that.
Steve Forbes, this was a pleasure. Merry Christmas.